Oh, my back and my shoulder. I am aching, Shawna, from sitting for hours working on this podcast. Could this sitting be affecting my health and wellness?
I feel you, Alli, because I feel it too. And sitting can definitely affect our health. And with work, a lot of people are sitting more than ever. And today on our podcast, we have Debbie Bellenger, founder and CEO of DB Fitness Wellness Solutions, LLC. She's going to talk about some of the health implications of our jobs. And what's most interesting is how she's going to explain, even if you don't have work for a company that supports wellness, some action steps that we can take to improve our health.
Let's dive in. But before we do, let's give a shout out to one of our Girls Talk Healthy Aging listeners, Miss Lisette Johnson. Thanks for listening. Welcome to the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, where we dive deep into pressing health and fitness issues facing aging women. I'm Alli Kerr.
And I'm Shawna Kaminski. And together we'll bring candid conversations, expert advice, and personal stories that will inspire and empower you on your own wellness journey.
This is a topic we have not really touched on today, and we have Debbie here to educate us about corporate wellness. So welcome to the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, Debbie.
Thank you, ladies.
And corporate wellness, some people may not, a lot of ladies are working, maybe working for a company, maybe they're working from home. And so can you first just tell us what corporate wellness is and what that encompasses?
Yeah, that's a good question. So any activity within the workplace that leads to employee well-being can be in that definition. And one of the things that's happened as a result of the pandemic is that I think two things. One, we're speaking about it a great deal more because of the lack of health of the American workforce. And number two, I think it's a broader definition today because we're finally speaking to mental health. It's always been important, but there's been a great deal of stigma attached to mental health in the workplace. Not that it doesn't also have stigma in our families and all of those contexts as well. But I think it's a much broader definition, but it's way overdue that it be that way. So, all the elements of well-being, it's not just one thing that makes us well. And I think we are embracing this broader definition that is inclusive of mental health today.
How did you find yourself in the world of corporate wellness?
Yeah, that's, you never know where life's going to take you, right? So I landed a director of wellness job as a Canadian girl for an American hospital. This is just like meant to be. It had to be. And within that role as director of wellness for Lexington Medical Center in South Carolina in Columbia, I had one of my divisions of responsibility, one of the departments that I was responsible for was employee well-being in partnership with human resources. And I had never coordinated an employee wellness program ever. I came out of the fitness world as a fitness instructor, fitness supervisor, fitness coordinator, fitness manager, fitness director, center manager. I had never coordinated and or had responsibility around employee wellness. But in this role, I did. So I learned by doing for 12 years in that particular role with my HR partners. And I really learned to love it. It's a very interesting space and it's very important. So I honestly learned by doing. It was not one of my classes I took doing my undergrad or my master's degree. It was boots on ground learning.
And tell us about the state of the health of our current workforce. Can you speak to that? Where are we? You talked about mental health, physical, mental. Where are we at?
Well, it's not a good news story, gals. The state of health of the workforce in America is pretty much in crisis mode. We are in a public health crisis, both in the workplace and in the nation at large. It's fascinating. So things that we're talking about around the lack of health is the state of poor mental health in the workplace. And I would recommend a very good read for all of our listeners would be the American Surgeon General's Dr. Vivek Murthy, his position paper. He has 3 very relevant ones. There's one around children too, in social media. So if you have kids, check that one out. But he has a position paper on the state of health in the workplace, and mental health is the worst it's ever been. So we're facing a lot of crises. We have obesity on the rise. CDC has forecasted that by 2030, and it'll be here in a skinny minute, 1 in 2 Americans will have an obesity diagnosis. So that's a BMI greater than 30. And the catastrophic nature of that statistic is if you have a clinical diagnosis of obesity, chances are you have metabolic syndrome, which is a grouping of multiple disease states. So it's not just an obesity diagnosis. You probably also have diabetes, hypertension, back and knee pain, sleep apnea. In America and the workforce, it all applies. The opioid epidemic is back on the rise, which is really, really sad because having been in healthcare for 23 years as director of wellness, I can speak from the healthcare side of it. We were starting to bend that curve. And through the pandemic, a lot of individuals lost coping skills. And the coping became drinking, overeating, and consumption of not so healthy things, right? Yeah, so the state of the workforce is very dire and stress levels are very high. So we're going backwards. We're not going forwards in any way right now. Yeah,
So,
sorry. Yeah.
yeah, well, no, I don't know if I don't think it's much of a surprise, but, when we hear from an expert in this field, it really is, it slaps us in the face, the reality of it. How has technology and desk sitting, on top of all the other stresses, how has that affected our health and wellness?
That is a major catalyst to all of these problems. So we have now what we call a generation of professional sitters. So before the pandemic, the stat in the States, I don't know the Canadian data offhand, I'd have to research it. Only 1 in 67 Americans worked from home. During the pandemic, it was around 1 in 8, 9, or 10. Everybody went to work from home. Now we were realizing this swing back to return to office initiatives, which are not going well for the most part because they're not being handled properly. But the ill of sitting is that it really does impact our metabolism and our posture. Our cardiovascular systems are compromised with sitting all day. So what's happened for the employers particularly, they're seeing a rise in cost of care, medical claims costs, with depression, back pain, neck pain, and pain especially unmanaged pain, very closely mirrors depression and can be a catalyst to depression. So Shawna, if you're sitting all day, so basically we have individuals sitting more hours than they ever have, and it's affecting our health. It's direct correlation. So Shawna, let's say before the pandemic, you were in the office, you went to meetings, you had clients out of the office, you were in and out of the car, up and down stairs, at your desk, at your lunch. You might have sat in your chair physically in a somewhat static position, which is horrible for our bodies. Let's say maybe 6 of the 8 hours. Well, today, working from home, many employees are sitting 8, 9, 10 hours with little to no change in this posture. So it has really impacted a lot of individuals, and a good group, if you're looking for the latest data around musculoskeletal issues, because that is the number in the top 3 cost of claims for employers. Hinge Health is a wonderful group, and they were in the space before the pandemic. They have a really nice white paper on the ills of sitting, if you're truly looking for more stats. But it has compromised our health terribly.
Working in the lab of working with ladies, I see both sides of the work from home. I see some ladies that actually got in better shape when they got out of the office because they were not in like a cubicle. They were able to move while they were on the phone or at their computer. And then I have ladies that have had to make an extra effort to be more active now that they're at home, that even maybe that have told me they experienced the like depressive kind of state for like that first year, and then they've adjusted and they've had to really make a concerted effort to move more so that they don't fall into that category. So I've seen it go both ways. In my in my studio with my ladies that I train, I don't know about Shawna, what you've seen.
Yeah, and I think it's this very similar to yours, but mine is a very small sample size compared to what you would see, Debbie, in terms of like, the bigger workforce. And also, I feel like our clients have they're more interested in fitness. So they are getting a walking pad. They're finding ways to fit in movement snacks, whether they're at home or in the office. So we have kind of a biased group, but it is kind of sad to hear your statistics, Debbie, that, and I have no doubt, because it is such a competitive market. Work is very competitive. And so there's not a lot of wiggle room in a lot of industries where people can find those pockets of time that they can get up and move around.
That's a very good observation. I like that both of you highlighted. You've seen the opposite as well, where a little more flexibility to take 60 minutes at lunch and go for a 30-minute walk. I've seen some stories like that as well, right? And that's really, really encouraging. And I think a lot of it has to do with the nature of work, based on whether it's blue collar hourly workers versus salaried, who have a little more permissions to set their own schedule and say, I'm time blocking, this is my workout, you can't reach me right now. Hourly employees don't have those flexibilities. So it's good conversation. And for some, it has produced a nice outcome, but for the masses, professional sitting is not the way to go for health.
So what can companies do, given the larger picture for the majority of people? What can companies do to turn this around?
Well, that's a great question and a very complex answer. It takes, my experience has taught me, this is not textbook learning, but experiential learning by doing. Companies have to be vested in the health of the workforce, not the bottom line, the health of the workforce, which translates to a more robust bottom line. So it takes C-suite leadership, someone at the very top, most often a CEO, to say, this matters. And as a result of that, there will be goals that align with initiatives to get our employees healthier, which means finding the right wellness vendors and partners, creating a benefit plan design that supports employees to do the right things with their health. I've heard so many stories where employees don't feel comfortable going to their doctor's appointment because there's too much work. I can't leave my desk for an hour to go to my annual well visit. That's not a culture that is supportive of employee health and wellness, right? So you understand what I'm saying. But it really does take a commitment from the C-suite. My experience has taught me if a CEO, male or female, is vested in their own wellness journey, they're more likely to embrace this concept of, it's very important I take care of my people, because they value healthy lifestyles, right? So it's easier to adopt it and then transmute it into an operational plan that things actually happen where employees can have some healthy choices at work. Benefit plan design is a big piece of this conversation too. That's
so we need to go get all the CEOs and get them interested in being healthy.
We do.
First.
That's right.
That makes sense. It makes sense.
My guess is that, this sort of thing is not like, the bottom line isn't improved right away. Like you're
Oh, no.
investing first, and then you will see the fruits of the investment over time as employees get healthier. So it really is top down, looking to invest for long term employee happiness, health, and then company wealth.
Mm-hmm. You're
And
exactly right.
one of the things, I guess, one of the counter arguments that I see and hear from the top down is that, and looking at research and numbers and the things that they like to look at, is how long employees stay on their job. And I may not want to invest in these employees if they're only going to be here 2.5, 3.5 years. And that is what I'm hearing. I'm not saying I would not want to invest, but that is, how do we get that message? Because I would think it actually would impact how long someone stays on their job as far as the turnover rate. If their employer is more concerned about their health and wellness, and I feel that my employer cares, then I may be willing to stay in that job, be happier, healthier, and stay longer.
You're exactly right. It starts at the front end, right, girls? So employee retention, employee engagement, employee satisfaction, and employee productivity are all tied into this conversation. So basically the conversation we're having right now is, what is the value proposition of having employee well-being programs for our employees? Show me the money. This is the script I learned by doing. Every single meeting with a C-suite member, take me to the bottom line in 5 minutes or I'm not interested, right? But so you're right. You're absolutely right, Alli. If employees know that the employer cares, that's very impactful, and that there are options day over day to make healthy choices and go get my well visits done and a good preventative health plan and maybe employee wellness challenges and a walking club. They all matter. They all matter. And employees right now are not staying at companies very long. They're jumping around. We've just come through the Great Resignation. And the tenure of younger employees is getting shorter and shorter. And they're job shopping based on benefits, availing themselves of choices whereby company A has these wellness benefits, company B has these. I'm looking for company A where I know day over day I feel like I have some flexibility in my day. My personal mission aligns with the company mission. I do get lunch breaks. I do get to take my PTO. I don't feel guilty if I have to pick up my son who's sick today. These are all things that align with a healthy organization. There's organizational culture, the wellness of an organization, and the wellness of the employees, and they have to work together because you can't separate them. So it's important that C-suite embrace it, communicate it, and then basically do what they need to do, which is make provisions for some options for health and wellness.
What about our listeners? Because a lot of our listeners, maybe some of our listeners are sitting in the C-suite, maybe a lot of which is at the top office of the company, but maybe a lot of our listeners are those employees that are working for the people sitting in the C-suite. What can we do if we're not in the C-suite and we're going to work and we're sitting in the cubicle and our company is not providing those things for us? What would you recommend that we do?
I love this question. It starts with personal individual health responsibility. It doesn't start with complaining. It starts with owning your own health, doing all that you can, and then taking the leap of faith to be an engaged employee and to engage others. So, Alli, you're going to work for a company and they're really not into health and wellness, but you are. So you do all the things you know to be true, pack a healthy lunch, go for a little walk on your break, and then you start inviting other employees to join you. You become a wellness ambassador without official assignment. You become a leader. This is how it evolves, right? If you can, you get the attention from your immediate supervisor and they might get a little bit interested. And then another supervisor might. And so basically it's this groundswell of advocacy, leadership by example, from the bottom up versus the top down. And both can work. It's just a different approach. But you have to be an ambassador to health and wellness and lead by example with your fellow colleagues.
I really love that, because I think that many people don't feel very empowered, and they feel like, well, my boss isn't supporting me, my job isn't supporting me, I just don't have any options. But there is always an option, as small as it may be, and it might be as small as packing a lunch or doing a movement snack at your desk, and then sharing that with somebody else beside you, and just bringing this culture of health and wellness from the bottom, so everyone can feel empowered, no matter if they're at the top or they're the male person, or
That's right.
the very bottom of the totem pole.
And what about the ladies that may be listening that are working from home, that are not going into an office? I'm sure it's kind of the same answer, but I'll let you tell us what we can do if we are working from home, and maybe we do have some flexibility, maybe we don't. What can we do?
Yeah, so I think we all have a circle of influence that we may or may not be aware of, right? So even from home, taking care of your own individual health needs, there's so many things during a day that can set you up for success. So water bottle, water glass, here's my de-stress, my monster-sized yoga cat. If I find myself not breathing, and little tips, if you are feeling stress, and these are a more applied skill, but I'm going to speak about the influence piece. One of the best ways to manage stress is to move. And as fitness professionals, go up the stairs, do the dishes, come back to your workspace. Go fold a couple of pieces of laundry, take a lap around the house. It will displace some of that swirl in our brains, right? For us that have interest in the health and wellness space, and for our listeners that do too, you can influence other teammates via Zoom. You can take initiative and talk about it and share and have lunch together and share what it is you're eating, and be an educator in a very kind, giving way. No one has to give you a title to be an educator. Share, share, share. To me, it's just helping others be on the path with you. And accountability, when you say something out loud, we're sharing lunch over Zoom, us three gals of Three Musketeers. Hey, Shawna, what are you having for lunch today? Oh, well, I brought the fried food from last night. I'm going to order in. Hey, Alli, what are you having? Oh, I packed a salad today. Hey, Deb, what are you having? This is just creating community around wellness, but we're still workmates. It's just via Zoom. So personal things you can do, and then impacting your team, even if it has to be via Zoom. Make some magic happen.
Well, we know that Zoom works. We
It works.
lived through the pandemic. Everyone learned that communication via, the interwebs works, and it's better than feeling isolation. And so what I'm hearing is that people that work from home still need to have that sense of community. And so finding a way to create the sense of community for mental wellness as well as physical wellness and health is very important.
So you just highlighted, that's so good that you said that, Shawna. Thank you. One of and I kind of missed this earlier, the state of our current workforce, Dr. Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General, one of his other advisory papers is on the loneliness epidemic as a result of the pandemic. Yes, it's fun to work from home, but for some, like you said, Alli, I think first year of adjusting to working remotely, there's this mini depression, getting through that, right? And figuring out how I'm going to fill my cup socially working from home. And Zoom may or may not be it, depending on our personalities, but the loneliness epidemic is real. And wellness can be a wonderful way to mitigate some of that. Wellness initiatives at work, wellness challenges at work, whether it's via Zoom or in person or both. That's a very good point, Shawna. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. It's funny that we are more connected than ever with the internet, but I think we are more lonely than ever. So even as introverts such as myself, I understand that we still need some level of interaction. And like you said, it could be at, some people are more comfortable on Zoom, some people hate it, some people need that physical or in-person interaction, but finding the sweet spot and not just overlooking it and addressing that as part of your wellness. Alli and I talk a lot about fitness and movement, but wellness is, from the neck down, but also from the neck up. So I think it's really important that we discuss that. So what are some indicators of burnout, whether you're at home, whether you're in the office, at work?
That's a great question. The American Psychological Association, by the way, gals, has reported that 1 in 5 Americans is suffering burnout. So, and I don't know that that's going to move, that needle is going to change anytime soon, but things to look for amongst your colleagues, your family, your friends, who you spend time with. One is a significant change in personality, a significant change in appearance, right? So let's say you have team meetings and Alli's always on screen, and this is more to a virtual conversation, but all of a sudden she stops coming on screen. She doesn't have her picture on. You never see Alli anymore. If you see significant behaviors like that, or she's on screen and she used to be really chatterbox, but now she doesn't speak anymore. She's not an engaged, active member. She has become very quiet. And you see this huge change in disposition. Those are signs to watch out for, right? Significant change. Maybe Alli's always the smiley person on the team. She's happy. She's engaged. She's making others happy. That's how we know her. And now she's really snappy, argumentative, very much on edge. And you're kind of like, instead of having a reaction, take a moment and just say, that's a concerning behavior change. Something's not okay with Alli. Then take the next step in private. Hey, Alli, how you doing? You've been really quiet lately, right? You don't call someone out on Zoom in a team meeting, but we do need to spend more time checking on our colleagues, our loved ones. Those are some key things. So that's relative to team space. As a person, individual, things that you're going to notice, you won't want to do what it is that you typically do. Huge energy shift. So let's say for me, my road bike is my therapy. I call it my road therapy. I'm happy on my road bike. And that sets me right. That's why I call it road therapy. But all of a sudden now I don't want to go on my road bike anymore. I don't accept invites from any of my riding friends. I'm not involved. I have trouble getting up in the morning day over day. I'm relying on artificial substances to find my happy. We're fitness people, so we know the impact of movement, endorphins, dopamine, feeling good. It creates nice energy in our bodies, right? And that can displace some of our negative mental energy. But maybe I don't have the desire to do any of those things anymore. And so I lean into the not so healthy, where I basically change some habits to get into the unhealthy space, drinking more, overeating, relying on prescription medicines, these not so wonderful habits, right? So I think the very first thing I would say is pay attention to your people. Eyes up. In fitness class, when I'm teaching, I say eyes up, but it applies in this conversation too. Eyes up. Pay attention to the folks that you're interacting with that you do notice change over time. And I think there's a lot of stress in the world today, and I think no ill intention attached. We just have to do better with watching out for our teams, our loved ones, our family members, because we just don't know. And so those are some of the key signs that you'll see shifting.
And with the mental side, the physical side, what are you seeing the companies that are doing it right or doing it well? What are some things that they're doing to maybe attract the employees, especially like you said, that younger generation, keep the employees and show that they are invested in the health of their employees?
Yeah, some of the things I'm seeing job descriptions now with massage options in there, nice benefit plans where things are covered really well, like you have telehealth options, making it easier to be compliant with annual well visits or going to the doctor if you haven't a lot of time. So nice benefit plan designs with some of these additional perks. A lot of the more proactive companies have added back in. They kind of went away. Two things. Annual health biometric screenings are coming back around, which I'm very much believe in, because at least their employees are getting it once a year somehow, some way. Adding a health coach to the team to have a private conversation with employees about their numbers. We call that know your numbers, very important. And encouraging having conversations within the teams around health, how we're doing, making health part of the culture effectively is what I'm saying. It's something we talk about as a team every week at a weekly or a monthly meeting. How are you doing? Did you know our benefit plan covers ABC? Some big companies too are adding in gym memberships again. I've just seen that start to shift, and that kind of went away for a while.
What biometrics are these companies tracking?
Yeah, so a standard biometric screen for an employer will typically be height, weight, BMI, although I know a lot of primary care docs would like to see that gone, as fitness people too, but height, weight, BMI, blood pressure, waist circumference, typically a health risk assessment of some sort, and there's multiple models out there, and a more robust screen will include a finger stick where we can do triglycerides and glucose reading.
And then what about mental health screening? Are those included typically, or?
Those will be included in the health risk assessment, Alli. There'll be a section. Typically, those health risk assessments will have different sections. So there'll be a few questions on exercise, sleep, smoking, stress, those kinds of things. Yeah. So it's only 5 or 6 questions, but it's a good pre-screen until you get to your physician visit.
Yeah, so it's just highlighting the big rocks for people, because I think sometimes people just get lost in work and family and stress and finances, and health just gets pushed to the bottom of the pile. So if someone doesn't have that personal connection to fitness, say like the 3 of us do, where it's pretty high, it's on the front burner. But for someone that has it on the back burner, if their employer is saying, hey, we're concerned about your health, could we take a look at these markers? It's going to bring it to the forefront. So maybe someone is going to say, hey, geez, my waist ratio is off, or my blood pressure is up. What am I going to do about it? And then it may lead to the next step.
Well, that's the key around doing these biometric screenings, right? It's a step in 2 key components in corporate wellness programs. One is prevention. So bringing these things to the forefront so we don't become the pre-diabetic that didn't know we were off the rails to become a full-blown diabetic. Life-altering event, right? Preventable. But you're right, you need annual data. Know your numbers. A lot of folks stopped going to the doc through the pandemic, and now we're realizing the tsunami of disease states because what was did not have to become. But that pre-diabetic became a full-blown diabetic or pre-hypertensive, so forth and so on. So I do agree with you, Shawna. I think it's really important that the company show the value and commit to it. It's prevention, number one. And the other key thing in corporate wellness programming is on the heels of that is to provide the education to teach the average employee the tenets of healthy lifestyles. And it's much bigger than fitness. I say the word wellness a lot. I grew up through fitness, but then my career took me more into wellness and population health. And I do believe an individual's wellness journey, health and wellness journey, can start in many different places. It doesn't have to start with exercise. It might start with a remote employee, Debbie meeting Alli via Zoom and making a friend with Alli. And that friendship might be the start of my health and wellness journey because my depression is mitigated because I have a bestie at work. There's a new Gallup report out. Gallup research does a lot of reports around the health of corporate America. Let me say it that way. Employee engagement and productivity. One of their latest reports that just came out shows that employees that have besties at work do stay longer. They're happier, they're healthier, and they have better retention. It makes sense, right?
Yeah,
but
sure.
I like that they're reporting this kind of data too.
Yeah, because wellness incorporates so many aspects of our humanity, from our blood pressure to our muscle tone and muscle mass, grip strength, to our mental health, our relationships. And seeing the bigger picture is really important. So I think that we need to really broaden our view of what is healthy, and rather than have, pigeonhole it into push-ups and squats and, just the fitness realm where
we know all about that.
We want everybody doing those things. But I also want someone to, have a conversation with their best friend. If they can be doing it on a walk, even better. But highlighting different aspects of health and wellness. And this has been a great episode to do that, because I think a lot of people, when they think of healthy aging, they really just think of the biometrics of like, well, what's my BMI? What's my weight? What's my bone density? Well, those are really important. Some of the other factors are equally as important for health and wellness.
Oh, ladies, I'm finally reading the book called Wealth Span.
Who's the author on that one?
Bob Fulton.
Okay.
I've seen it on LinkedIn many times. Many of my colleagues have read it, and I commented on an individual's post around older adult livelihood, active aging, how we of a certain age are changing the definition of aging, which is brilliant, right? We don't ambition, none of our listeners do either, to grow old, sit in a recliner, and age out with 10 years of sickness. That's not on the to-do list. And an interesting stat for our listeners today, we have more Americans over age 55 than we do younger. Think about that for a second. So there's a lot of big headwinds coming. Can healthcare accommodate that? Can fitness clubs accommodate that? Do we have enough instructors who know how to teach appropriate exercise opportunity for 55, 65, 75, 85? Because that's where we're going, right?
Yeah.
But the read is very interesting because it does highlight healthy longevity and living healthy, longer lives without sickness and disease the best we can really do matter. You have to have a purpose. You need social. So fitness is a part of the book, but it's one element.
Yeah.
Social connection as we age is paramount. Really, and financial wellness, big component of this read. It's a fascinating read. I'm almost done, and I think I could read it again because there's so many nuggets. But you hit on a very important point there, Shawna. Yeah.
Well, I love Dr. Peter Attia's book, Outlive.
Yes.
But
yes.
that really is looking at more of the physical.
Yes.
And so this WellSpan looks like a good read for a more holistic, healthy aging read.
Yeah, to the point of thinking ahead.
Yeah.
If you could imagine what life looks like at 70, 75, 80, and building your dream home or buying your dream home to allow for you to age out in it, because the biggest thing that tips older adults over between unexpected disease is going into assisted care, assisted living. It consumes all their finances.
Yeah.
Some stats are just riveting for me. So it's a brilliant think ahead. So the other half of life, second stage of life, is very productive and healthy and well and fun. And we get to do all the things that we've ever put on our bucket list, right?
Yeah. I think a lot of people are just reluctant to look at what their life would be like at 80 and maybe reverse engineer to make it be the best that it can be. The average death, when women die, I'm saying that incorrectly, is I think 82.6 years. So that means at 61, I have, this limited amount of time. And while I would hope to be living longer than 20 years or 21 years, it behooves me to plan, what do I want to get done in those 21 years? How do I want that to look? And like with any luck, I'll surpass that. But we also have to know that, sarcopenia is real, muscle wasting. Our health is not going to be getting better in the next, in the years that are ahead of us, even when we are proactively working hard. Death has got 100% success rate. We're all headed there, right? But when we look ahead and like are realistic with what do we want our life to look at like. So, I think we're maybe ahead of like kind of gone off the corporate wellness, but it does start. It's got to start somewhere. And if we're getting that message from our employee, employer, if we're getting, if we've got health ambassadors at the desk beside us, if we're surrounding ourselves with a community that has that perspective of let's age in as healthily as we can, we're all going to be better off.
Yeah, and picking an employer that has good retirement and 401k, and that's financial wellness. It's a huge piece of this puzzle. It does start in our younger working years while we're on payroll, and younger employees are shopping around for very robust benefits. So it's a very legit, it's a legit point.
And I think for working with women, what I've seen is we spend so much time wanting to go back in time and looking backwards that we're not doing the looking forward and planning ahead. We want to still go back and have our bikini body from when we were 18 years old instead of looking how do we get the most out of our life. And, our headspace is taken up by so much time and energy spent on those things. So that's one of the challenges that I see with ladies that 100%. I work with.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so unfortunate that everyone's looking back and regretting that, I used to look like this. I used to be able to do this, instead of what can I do today so that 10 years from now, I'm not looking back and saying, I used to be able to. So it's such a good point, Alli.
Yeah. And that's where employers do have impact. Corporate wellness, if you work for a company that maybe your whole life you've never been athletic, been interested in health and wellness, but you join a company that does all the right things and you get on the health and wellness journey because you did your first biometric screen or your first 8-week wellness challenge, the companies that do it right, they are changing lives. And it it's by design, most impactful. Mm-hmm.
And if they're not, if your company doesn't, the takeaway I am getting is because sometimes you may be the weirdo. You may be the weirdo bringing the healthy lunch, and everybody else is like, "Why won't she go out to eat with us? Why you want to eat that?" And sometimes you just have to be the weirdo if you want to live longer and take care of yourself.
We need T-shirts for that, Alli. Sometimes you just be the weirdo. That's cute.
Debbie, if you had a wish for our listeners, what would it be?
Yeah, I do have a wish. My wish is that each individual that's listening takes the information and does all that they can in their individual best they can do day over day. Choose health. It is not, and then impact your family and friends. It is not about the bikini body. Starvation. Choose health. Move to feel better. Eat good things to feel better. Spend time with your best girlfriend to feel better. Choose health, because nobody gives us the basket of health, even with good genetics, and says, you're good to go. It doesn't work like that. And I'm trying not to say the term self-care because we can derail, but being really solid in your individuality as a woman and individual, particularly women, to choose health and be, it's health is wealth. It truly is. But to feel good and feel healthy and feel strong and lift your weights, lift the weights, ladies. You gotta lift. That's my message for today.
Alli?
Mine would be, if you have to be the weirdo and get a t-shirt that says so if you need to.
I love it. And mine is similar in the personal responsibility. Don't wait for someone else to do it for you, and take an all or something attitude. Even just small things make a big difference over time. You don't have to do it all. You just have to do some of it, some of the time, and that is going to improve your health over time.
Thanks for listening. You'll find me, Alli, on Instagram at Alli Kerr Fitness.
And you'll find me, Shawna, on Instagram at Shawna Kaminski. Feel free to pop us a DM with questions and or feedback. If you're enjoying the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, please subscribe and share it with other health-minded women. Ratings and reviews are also much appreciated and help us get our message out to a larger audience.
Until next time, be healthy and be happy.